Hi guys, it's Ray here from Man City Fan TV. Got a big, massive update for you today. We're going to talk about the Claudio Bravo goalkeeping situation and the search for a new number 2. We'll talk about the Spurs match being delayed by 24 hours. We'll talk about the Neves rumours. Douglas Luiz, he's still around. Where's he going to end up? Zinchenko, where's he going? Is he going to go at all? We'll talk about VAR for the latter stages of the Champions League. We'll talk about Jason Denayer going to Lyon. We'll talk about Daniel Arzani and what the Australia coach has said about him. We'll talk about Alan Shearer and his comments about Sergio Aguero. We'll talk about a sponsorship deal with one of the biggest robotics companies in the world. And we'll finish off by talking about a young keeper, 16-year-old keeper that we're actually buying. He's one for the future, not for right now. And he's called Gavin Bazunu. Okay, guys. First up, the search for a replacement keeper and the options that are open to City. Now that Claudio Bravo is going to be injured and out of action for several months, probably around 6 months by the looks of things. And this talk on social media, people are saying, why can't we recall Aro Muric from NSE Breda? And I think apparently we don't have a recall clause in the loan agreement. And we really shouldn't have had a recall clause in the loan agreement, in my opinion, because we're supposed to be doing what's best for the player. City should be acting in the best interest of the player. And recalling him to go on the bench is probably not in his best interest. He needs to go out and play. Now, the only way I believe we can recall him is if we have agreement with NSE Breda. Now, I think that would really damage their season because he's a very good keeper and they're basing their team around him and a few other good players. And to lose him now, for them to have to put a second or third string keeper in, I think it's not fair on them. And as I said, I don't think it's fair on him. He needs to be out there playing, not being on the subs bench at City. As I said before, it's a different sort of experience. It's a good experience to be on the subs bench, but not for the foreseeable future. I mean, for him to be on the subs bench, for argument's sake, for 6 months, not playing a game, I don't think that's in his best interest. He needs to be playing, so I don't see that as a real option. We could go for the special dispensation to the FA. There's rumblings that they will or they won't allow us to get another keeper. Apparently, we can sign any out-of-contract player. But looking at some of the keepers on that list, I don't think they're really what we want. I mean, one of the better ones, you could argue, is Stuart Taylor, who we let go, I think, 6 years ago. So he's probably knocking on a bit by now. So I'm not sure that's the right option to us. And I think the best option is this special dispensation, if we can get it from the FA, to go out and sign or loan another keeper from somewhere else. I think a club in Europe, they may not like us taking one of their players so late before the end of the transfer window, but that might be the option that we go for. There's talk of a Spanish keeper, the Barcelona's second keeper, I think his name is Jasper Cillessen. Now, there's rumours that, you know, he in some of the papers or some of the media that he is a target for City. And personally, no, I don't believe it. I don't believe it myself. He's number 2. He's second choice in Barcelona. Apparently, he's really unhappy that he didn't even get the cup game recently, and he wants out. But what's the point of him coming to City? Because he'll go from being on the bench at Barcelona to being on the bench at City. What's the benefit to him? What chances have he got of displacing Ederson? Quite frankly, absolutely zero. Less than zero. So there's no point him coming here. He's not going to be able to fight for the number 1 jersey. And he'll just be wasting his time as he is at Barcelona. So I really don't see that. And as I said probably a couple of times already, our best option is to seek special dispensation from the FA and go and get a loan keeper from somewhere for 6 months, or if Bravo's injury is going to be longer, for longer than that. Next on the list, Spurs. It's an absolute disgrace what's happening at Spurs and what they've allowed to happen with their, quite frankly, until someone tells me otherwise, greed, trying to get their new stadium built before the start of the season or just a few games into the season so that they could get their team there. And I'm just going to go out and say it's just so that they can make more money. I mean, a 62,000 seater stadium. I'm sure they'll have to pay rent or some fee to Wembley. I'm not sure how much money they actually make from a game. And the fans don't want to go there. I mean, we can see by so many games last season, I don't think they were full. all the way through the season. So it must be costing them something, or it must be financially better for them to be at their new ground. Now, what's coming out at the moment? It's said that they may delay the game against City, which has already been changed once by Sky. So originally it was on I think the 27th. It would have been down for the 27th of October, which is a Saturday. Sky have changed it to the 28th, which is a Sunday. And now it looks like Spurs want Sky to, in effect, change it again and go for the 29th of October, which is a Monday night, which is absolutely fantastic to have to go down to London on a Monday night for a game. A lot of people are going to be really brassed off having to take the day off work on Monday, and possibly some of them on Tuesday for a night game, for a Monday night game. I mean, you're going to be lucky to get back by whatever it is, 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever it is. I think the last game I went to down in London, I think at the Arsenal game, I got back at 2:30 in the morning. It was terrible on the way back. So it's not fair on any fans, especially us City fans, to have to do this trip down to London on a Monday night. As well as that, there's a lot of fans who have already, they know they're going to get tickets for this game, so they've already booked and paid for their transport and their hotels. And it's not always the case that you can be refunded the money you've already paid out. So some people will be out of pocket. And I think the minimum, absolute bare minimum that Spurs should be doing is compensating people for any costs that they've incurred that they cannot get reimbursed, or any additional costs that they may incur because of this. For argument's sake, say you booked a hotel down in London for Sunday night or Saturday night or whatever, and it was costing you £120 to be very close to the Spurs Stadium. If you now have to go to Wembley instead and book a hotel there, for argument's sake, let's say it's costing you £150, then I think Spurs should reimburse any reasonable costs or any reasonable additional costs for this. And it is a mockery, really. Spurs are making a mockery out of everything, because, you know, to ask City, I think they asked City if they could play the game at Etihad instead, and then have the reverse fixture, which should have been at the Etihad, down at their ground at the end of the season. Absolutely ridiculous. It's not fair on City. It's not fair on anybody else in the league. It's just an absolute bonus for Spurs. It's not on, and as I said in a video I did last week, I think Spurs should be fined very heavily, and the FA Premier League should seriously consider, if it's possible, a points deduction. They knew it was a tight time scale to get their ground ready in time, yet they took on this project, a massive complex project, knowing it was going to be very tight. And they've already delayed it once, the return to their ground, and delaying it again. By the looks of things, it won't be till November that they'll be playing a home game in the league. And that's, as I said before, it's absolutely ridiculous. It's a scandal that it's been allowed to happen, especially when the Premier League rules state that you're only allowed to have one home ground in the season. And they'll have had Wembley and then and the White Hart Lane, their new redeveloped, rebuilt ground, whatever you want to call it. So they've already bent and broken the rules, and the FA Premier League have allowed them to do that. So I think this time it's got to be more than a slap on the wrist. A fine of £2 or £3 million, they'll take that. You know, for all the hassle they've caused everybody else and all the discomfort. A loss of 3 points, which could be the difference between a top 4 place or not, and Champions League next season or not, or even winning the league potentially or not. I think that's going to hurt and hammer home the point, and hopefully no other club is going to go down this quite ridiculous and scandalous route of taking such major risks. And they knew beforehand it was a very risky thing to do. So as I said, I'm all for a fine, a nice hefty £2 or £3 million fine, and a points deduction for Spurs. Next on the list, Neves. We've got the Wolves' fantastic player. I think he's only 21 years old. He was great for Wolves last season. And there's rumours out there, I think quite ridiculous rumours. I'll say that straight away, that City are interested in buying him in January for £60 million. Why do I think it's ridiculous? Well, the rumours have just come about because apparently City had a couple of scouts at a recent Wolves game. And people have put 2 and 2 together and come up with 5. I think it's quite reasonable for City to have people down at the Wolves game, because guess who we're playing next in the league? Wolverhampton Wanderers. So it's just natural, it's a normal thing to do in football, to send scouts out to watch a game. When we're playing in Europe, we'll send scouts out to watch 1 or 2 games before we actually play the team. So I think there's absolutely nothing different here. And he looks a good player. Absolutely no question about that. He does look a good player. I think I want to see a little bit more of him in the Premier League, because quite honestly, I didn't see too much of him in the Championships. Obviously, you see highlights and see bits and pieces, and obviously when he's scoring great goals, you watch them. But I want to see him play a little bit more in the Premier League, just to see what level of ability he really has, and whether he'd be a good option for City or not. So personally, I hold no stock in these rumours, and I just don't think there's anything in them. And talking about rumours, moving on to Douglas Luiz, our kid from Brazil that we couldn't get a work permit for, and now he's sat there, probably not twiddling his thumbs, he's probably training with the first team, but I don't really think we want him to be training and doing nothing. We want him to be playing games, and he should have been part of our squad this season. Now, there were initial rumours that he could be going up to Celtic, and they were further strengthened this weekend by the mere presence of Brendan Rodgers at City watching a game. Now, Brendan Rodgers, he's a top manager in Scotland, and I think it's only natural that he'd want to see how the best manager in the world does things. He wants to improve himself as a coach, as a manager, and so, as I said, it's only natural to see what other people are doing. So because people saw him there, there's a link that, yes, which one of our kids is he after? I think it's quite reasonable to actually be linked with some of our kids, because we've sent people up there quite recently. Arzani, for instance, who I'll talk about shortly. We sent him up there on a 2-year loan. We had Roberts there. I think he spent 2.5 years there. In the past, we've had Jason Denayer there. We sold him Dedrick Boyata. So it's possible that he could be looking at some other players. I don't think we'd be wanting Douglas Luiz to go to play at Celtic, because I think that's a major step down for him. He was ready, I believe, and I think Pepe's between the lines said as much. He was going to be with the first team squad this season. He was going to be knocking on the door for games. So to go from playing for one of the best teams in the world to go to Celtic, no disrespect to Celtic, I think is a huge step down for him, especially as since last season he was at Girona. He played 17 games for them. They're playing in La Liga, another good, strong league. So for him to go out on loan, I want him to go really to a stronger league than Celtic, or at least play in the Champions League. Now, there is a rumour that right now that Porto are looking to take him on loan for the season. And although I think the Portuguese league is a little bit weak as well, you've got 2 or 3 decent teams there. The one major advantage for going to Porto is that they have Champions League football. And actually the second major advantage, they speak Portuguese, which is what Douglas Luiz speaks, coming from Brazil. So I think that actually there are 2 good reasons to go to Porto. He'll get a good level of football still, in a team that have a good ability, a good control of games like City have in our league. So I actually think that's a better option for him to go to Porto than to go to Celtic.